Good afternoon, everyone. I am Emma Toops. I am the executive director, or executive chair, for American Warriors and the facilitator for the Purple Connection. This event is hosted and sponsored by Toops Consulting. David and I are connectors, coaches, and consultants in our business, where our work is focused on supporting students and adults in academic and career transition. We thank all of you for being here. Welcome especially to those who this is your first Purple Connection event. For our new attendees, thank the person who invited you because they felt that you could benefit or contribute by being part of the community. And to our regulars, it's good to see you again. Here is the event agenda. I will begin with an introduction to American Warriors and the Purple Connection. And then we'll get started with our educational networking program. We'll have a panel of contributors that comprise of a military spouse entrepreneur, a community organization, and a military-friendly company. Once our presenters speak, there'll be a Q&A with the panel and the community for questions and answers. And then I'll wrap up the networking program with transition tips. I'll start wrapping up the event overall by sharing some ways for you to get involved with American Warriors and the Purple Connection, announce some future events, and the lineup for next month's Purple Connection. So an introduction to the Purple Connection and American Warriors. American Warriors is a special interest group of the ACA Business Club, which is a private club with the philosophy that business flows out of relationships. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Thus, members are committed to creating solid connections by learning and practicing the fundamentals of strategic networking and relationship building. American Warriors are club members, then, who have an affinity with or support those who have served our country in military or public service. The mission statement for American Warriors is to provide educational and networking opportunities for patriotic citizens who are leaders in business and support the transition to in private and public sector business of active duty service members and first responders. The Purple Connection is one vehicle that the American Warriors Club will fulfill its mission. The challenges of transitioning from the military is a very well-researched problem. It's evident by the multitude of military support nonprofits and community organizations that provide services to address them. Driving Community Impact was a white paper that was published in April of 2015 by the Syracuse University Institute for Veterans and Military Families. They determined after several years of research and thousands of surveys that the leading gap in services was not that there was a lack of them, but that there was a lack of connectedness of services and support. Very often, transitioning military will feel a loss of purpose. They may feel isolated or misunderstood, or feel overwhelmed for their need of help, but they are disconnected or they lack affinity to the people and culture of their new environment. So, how do you solve it? You create a partnership of stakeholders who have a common goal for supporting American Warriors. The Purple Connection is a community of partnered stakeholders with a common focus of service, support, and care so that we can effectively address the challenges of transition. So what's up with the name? There's actually two reasons for it. In government jargon, the color for joint is purple. When our military is operating overseas on a deployment, that environment is comprised of a multitude of seemingly disparate entities with differing purposes, but they have a common purpose through the operation that unites and focuses their efforts. The Purple Connection is an attempt to replicate this type of joint environment to support American Warriors in transition. Another reason is that when you combine the colors of red and blue, you get purple. So in the Purple Connection, we are facilitating the connection of individuals who identify more closely to either the military community or the military support and business community. And when they come together, it is a Purple Connection. Here are the Purple Connection's mission and vision. We create awareness to enable access and then empower action through collaboration and encouragement to expedite reintegration, support growth and healing, and enable opportunities. We do this by regularly bringing together community experts and facilitating connections through educational networking. Here are the rules of engagement for our panel program and networking. Each participant will have 8 minutes to deliver their remarks. I will be using a timer. The timer can be stopped short and given back for Q&A or used up entirely by the panelist. However, when the timer goes off, please wrap up and we'll move on to the next presenter. Once each panelist has spoken, there will be 15 minutes for Q&A with the community. If you're uncomfortable with public speaking or you want to remain anonymous with your question, you can put your question in either the private or public chat channel and I will ask it for you. Questions are not limited to the topic of the day, but take advantage of the expertise available on our panel. Please be succinct in your questions and direct them to a specific panelist or to the community if it's a more general transition question. If you have a complicated question, you may ask it to discover if there's a subject matter expert in the audience, but if a response would take longer than 2 minutes to address it, I will recommend that you follow up after the event. After the Q&A, I will provide transition tips. That is an educational segment for paradigm or process shifts, or maybe a recommendation to resources that apply to the topic of the day, which today is our furry family. After the presentations, if you have not already, share in the public chat or what your point of contact information is and how you serve or need support from the community. The chat will be saved and all attendees will get a cleaned up copy in a future email so you can follow up with each other as you like. I will do event announcements and then wrap up the event. All right, our first presenter is a military spouse entrepreneur. Dani Rouse is a surviving military spouse. She is a canine listener in her business, Canine Instincts. Today, she's going to tell us about her work as a dog behaviorist. Dani, I see that you're on. You can unmute and you can begin your remarks.
Okay, I've got some notes here, kind of keep me on point, so bear with me.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate everybody's time. That's Cayenne, my dog. Of course, she's going to start barking in the background. Do you love your dogs, but you're frustrated by some of their behaviors? I'm Dani, and I'm the canine listener at Canine Instincts. I help guide your dogs to better behaviors. I help you understand how your dogs think and why they do the things they do, even when they're misinterpreted as misbehaviors. Because all they're trying to do is communicate with you, and they don't speak human and we don't speak dog. Kind of like English is mostly first language for us. So for dogs, canine is their first language. So in a way, I teach people CSL, canine as a second language. And I do that by helping you understand your dog's behaviors, such as dogs are motivated by attention. In fact, bad attention is better to the dog than no attention at all. So if you're telling your dog to get off, get down, sit down, do whatever, when they're jumping on you or something like that, you've given them what they wanted. So in a way, they think they're the king of the world or the queen of the world. And you're reinforcing that by giving them the attention. But we're humans, and humans, we talk things out. Dogs are looking for an interaction or a movement from us. You would think they would be verbal, but really a lot of it's nonverbal. So when I work with people, I teach them how the dogs think. And in a lot of ways, we start with, understanding how they think, and then I pass that along to you. And one of the ways I help you is understand the 5 to thrive for dogs. It starts with food, which inappropriate feeding, walking, which they see as a hunt, barking, which is the way they tell you they're perceiving a danger. Like even a car, or the post person that comes by your house every single day, they're like, danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger. So, and when you separate or reunite with them by leaving the house or coming in, or even going into the bathroom and shutting the door, it's simple things like that. And last but not least, play. There's an appropriate way to play with them. And that all these 5 areas help you establish your being the pet parent and being the leader and letting them relax and be a member of the family. A lot of these behaviors are because they know they need a family unit, and they know they need a leader or a pet parent in the family unit. So if they're not perceiving it, like in the beginning when you get a new one, they're like, I know my DNA is telling me I need to do this. So I help you understand how to establish that with them, but you can't sit there like human and go, hey, I got your back. You have to do it with your movements and your interactions with them. And what I do is considered like a foundation of dog behavior. So let's say you have an agility dog, a show dog, or even a military or contract working dog. You tell those dogs what to do. You have commands for them, but basically you're telling them what to do and giving them points to hit or whatever. And they do fine doing that. And then you bring them home and it's like, a lot of them are well behaved, but some of them are just, they don't know how to be dogs. They don't know how to relax or chill. So my job is to help you learn how to do that with them. And with what I teach, it's not going to impact their training that you have for the ring or for their work or for their job they've got. So I call it a basic foundation layer. And like I said, it doesn't interfere with what you've already got them doing. But I don't do really commands. So it's more of a natural type thing. But in a home, so what I'm going to teach you is how the dog can be a better behaved dog without interfering with all of that. Now, I'm what's a natural canine behavior consultant. Even though I call myself a canine listener, I'm not a whisperer, but I teach a method called pure dog listening, and I trained out of the United Kingdom several years ago. I don't have magic pills or quick fixes or gadgets, but with a calm, consistent, natural partnership with you and your dog, you'll see changes in 3 to 6 weeks. And I'll help you teach your dog how to think. That's the other thing. We're not going to tell them what to do. I'm going to help you teach them how to think by the interactions and movements with them and what you expect from them. And you're going to have a better behaved dog like in 3 to 6 weeks. But I offer 13 weeks of support if you end up being a personal client of mine. I have a consultation package. I'm also going to start teaching classes, a 6-week class in Platte City, Missouri at the end of April through the Northland Career Center. I've taught this method also to inmates at Missouri's prison dog program for over 5.5 years. We started with 20 dogs at any one time and 2 wings, and they had 2 handlers each. So I was working with 20 humans, plus there were extra handlers. So more people like that. So I went once a week to start, went twice a month, and then eventually I was going once a month as we got into a rhythm with that. This is my passion because I started out over 20 years ago fostering, and I wanted to save all the dogs. So now I've been in business for 18 plus years, and instead of just saving all the dogs, I can't do that all by myself. So I'm trying to help you save all your dogs, because once you learn this, as you get more dogs into your family over time, this method works with all dogs, no matter what, but you realize that every dog's an individual. But what I like about this is that you're working together with the dog and you're helping the dog think, and so they can learn how to be a well-behaved dog. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as the Canine Listener at Canine Instincts. And I've dropped my links once, and I'll drop them again when I'm done. And my website is canineinstincts.com. And that's the letter K, the number 9-instincts.com. And thank you, Emma, for inviting me to have this opportunity to share with everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. That was really great information. Very, very relevant to our audience as far as, what it means, the work that you do. We'll have some questions for you a little bit later on in the Q&A. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next presenter. All right, our next presenter is representing a community organization. Joe Jeffers is the executive director for Warrior's Best Friend. It's a military support nonprofit here in Greater Kansas City. Today, he's going to share about the growth and evolution of the organization and how they support 2 important programs with the service dogs that they train. Joe, pretty sure I saw you.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, very good. You have 8 minutes. You can go ahead and start.
Well, I'm not going to get anywhere close to 8 minutes, but I'll try. So again, my name is Joe Jeffers. I'm the executive director and founder of Warriors Best Friend Foundation. And a little history on myself and how I ended up starting this organization. I grew up at the very end of the Vietnam War. My dad was in Vietnam as a pilot. And while he was deployed, I was born on an Army base. And then when he came back to the United States, I spent about 10 years bouncing around to different Air Force bases. So I had a great appreciation as a family member for the military and understood the sacrifices that families do while their husbands and wives are deployed. And so even though I had no interest in being in the military, I wanted to run companies. And so I got a degree in entrepreneurship. But I did have a great uh, sense of duty to try to do something to help military families. I had a great passion growing up as being an animal lover. Didn't matter what kind of animal it was. I just loved animals. And so I sold my last company in 2012 and decided I was not going to do any more for-profit businesses, that I wanted to now see what I could do to help military families and animals. And so in starting Warrior's Best Friend, my goal was to showcase the impact that rescue dogs could have on military service members. And I decided to do that. We do a lot of videos, training videos, when we're out training in public and training at our facility, that kind of showcases how these dogs go from coming from a shelter and what their life is at that time, and then going through our training process, eventually to graduating, mastering 25 commands that we teach our service dogs, and then placing them and pairing them with a veteran based on their physical and emotional needs. And so as an organization, we specialize in psychiatric service dogs, and we work with severe PTSD service members and traumatic brain injury. And so about 85% of our veterans have physical wounds, so all of them are combat vets. And even though our dogs are not considered medical service dogs, they do provide some of those functions for our veterans. So if many of our veterans with severe PTSD, traumatic brain injury, have issues with stability, issues being able to stand up if they're, if in the morning when they get out of bed. And so our dogs are taught commands like brace and other things that help with a very limited medical needs. But those soldiers who do have traumatic brain injury have stability issues walking. And so our dogs are very big. They're 23 inches at shoulder. Obviously, they're very young. We typically get our dogs between 10 months to 14 months old. That way, when they finish up the training program, they still have a very long service life ahead of them. And so anyways, that's our service dog portion of what we do. And then in 2018, the Liberty School District here in Kansas City reached out to us and asked if we could modify our training program to provide assistance to special needs kids and at the school, and then also in the school's counselor's office. And so in 2018, we did provide 2 dogs to the school as a test program. We had our trainers at the school each day seeing how the teachers, both special needs teachers and then social workers, counselors, were able to utilize the dogs to help children. We did modify our training process to be able to accommodate that. And then in 2019, we partnered with William Jewell College, their Department of Psychology, to do a year-long research study at the Liberty High School. And so we replaced those 2 temporary dogs with 2 permanent dogs, one attached to the SPED department, one to the counselor's department. And then each day for nearly a year, there were research students at the school who observed the interactions, the impacts that the dogs had on different groups of kids, whether it would be autism, behavioral issues, reading disabilities, as you can imagine, all different kinds of things. And then in the quarters in the counselor's office, it's not just students who take advantage of the counseling service. It's also parents who come in distraught with their kids misbehaving, and staff members too that are having a bad day and go to the counselor. So we finished that in 2019 with the idea that this was something that we were just doing as one-off to help our local school district. And the university published the study in 2019, and we've been overwhelmed. So we have schools from all over the country, New Jersey and San Francisco and Texas and everywhere in the country calling us wanting facility dogs. And so I'll explain to you a little bit what a facility dog, what the difference is between a service dog, a facility dog, and a therapy dog. And the easiest way that I can explain that, service dogs and therapy dogs are intended to provide service to one individual. So they are specifically taught to accept commands from one person, even a therapy dog that would go into, say, a hospital, a retirement community, whatever. The dog itself is actually certified as a team with their handler. So it's a certified team, not really a certified dog. A lot of people have kind of a misunderstanding of that. Very similar with service dogs. When we place a dog with a veteran, and then they come here to Kansas City, at the end of those 9 days that they train here with us in Kansas City, they're then that last day given a test, and they have to demonstrate that they have the ability to handle that dog in all public situations that come up. By the way, my light just popped off in my, I don't know if you can see me. The difference between a facility dog, our facility dogs are specifically trained to accept commands from multiple people. And so we may attach a dog to a particular handler at the school, might be a SPED teacher, might be a counselor, might be the principal. But we also train additional staff members at the school to be able to handle the dog if that person is tied up doing, maybe there's a meeting they're going into that's not appropriate to have the dog there, some sort of situation, maybe they have to leave school for a doctor's appointment. So not only do we train that handler, who's the primary handler for the dog, but we also train 2 to 3, sometimes 4 staff members at the school to be able to handle the dog too. So anyways, that's kind of the difference between a facility dog. How we looped that really back into, as I said, my goal was to be able to provide assistance to veterans. That is what Warrior's Best Friend does. And so this once time that we were going to do this with the school turned into now a greater opportunity to help military service members at bases. And so in 2021, we provided 2 dogs, or actually 1 dog, to Fort Riley, Farley. Farley was quickly overwhelmed with requests not only from individual units at the base, but also the hospital, the 4 schools on the base, honor flights, just anyways, Farley was overwhelmed, and they requested a second dog, and we did provide a second dog to them. So that both of those dogs were attached to the USO there on Fort Riley.
All
And
right.
since then, we have sort of built a business model. Yep. Am I talking too long, Emma?
Yeah. The timer has
I
gone
didn't
off,
think I
but
was going to
no.
close 8
You had plenty to say, and it's great. We really love it.
Good.
But what I'd like to do is go ahead, wrap up what you're saying about Farley at Riley. But
Uh-huh.
we can continue asking some questions of you in the Q&A, and maybe you can
Sure.
offer a few more things during that portion of the program.
That'd be great.
Okay.
So anyways, we've got now 2 dogs there, and our goal is to be able to provide these dogs to military bases throughout the world. So we are hopefully going to be working with the USO. We also have a recent opportunity to work with the Red Cross, their arm or their department that works on military bases. So anyways, it all came back around to being able to help veterans and their families.
All right, that's great. I did not realize you guys had expanded your programs until I reconnected with you a few weeks ago. And that's great news. I love it. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for your remarks. We will move on to our next presenter. All right, our next presenter is representing a military-friendly company. Mark Claussen is the Director of Business Development for Icon Structures Incorporated, and previously was the Executive Director for the USO State of Kansas. He's applied his breadth of experience from the USO in his new environment and will speak to us today about various ways Icon Structures supports our military family, our military community with services, opportunity, and community activities. Mark, see that you're on. You have 8 minutes and you can begin your remarks.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to share about not only my passion for working with the military, but also the opportunity that Icon Structures, which is a general contracting company, has enabled me to be able to do things still after my relations with Joe. Actually, I am the handler for Farley. I also have Remington, who was the second dog. But when I transitioned out of the USO, I left him with his primary handler at the USO. So he is still out there on a very regular basis. Farley and myself go out there on request or as big events, as we had a large homecoming back from a deployment over in Europe for our 1st Infantry Division. We were out there for some of their redeployments back home. And as units do different things, they request, and we still come out there and are able to bring Farley to interact with people. I can tell you that Joe and his staff on training these animals is amazing. I know firsthand that Farley actually identified at least 6 different individuals in the time that we were out there that were needing help. One of them, we actually, I would have never guessed it because of the outward appearance of this individual and how they were interacting with Farley, but he got very interested in that person, kind of crawled up into his space, and the person was super happy, never guessed it. And I was talking about how he interacts and how he identifies like PTS type symptoms, and his first sergeant told me that he was seriously struggling. There was concerns about self-harm. And by coming up and visiting with Farley a couple different times after that initial meeting, he was actually convinced to start doing counseling. So they do make a huge impact. And that interaction is what I wanted to maintain when I was no longer working with the USO, and I found this opportunity to work with Icon. It was one of my first asks was, I have this service dog. We do these things. Is that something we can still do? And we have veterans on our staff. We have offices in Wichita, here in Manhattan, and also Eudora, which is just outside Kansas City. And we have about 75 employees currently. We, as staff, understand that the military teaches people how to be great leaders, how to be great thought planners, how to logistically plan things out, which is a lot of what a general contractor does. We organize, We bring in subcontractors. We make different teams work together to erect that building. And so we always look for those type of experiences. And then we try and correlate that into how that could work for Icon Structures. Or since we work with so many different subcontractors, it may not be a fit for us particularly, but we may have a way of steering that person to a different company that might be a better fit or might have a particular need at that time that would correlate. And so we still we work at different opportunities within our areas to make those connections for the military. And Farley is a good bridge for that. We go out to these events, we go to hiring events, and just be that face of Icon. And Farley has a great face. He draws in a lot of people and has an opportunity to talk and expound. And we're involved with military advisory committees and Chamber of Commerce's. We just try and stay involved and interact in every way that we can. We try and support Joe, the what they do, whether it's school or military, I think is amazing. And it's that one more step in how we can support. Both my grandparents were in the military. Well, both my granddads were in the military. And when I was contemplating doing that out of high school, they both said, go get your education first, come back in as an officer. They were both drafted, so they didn't have a choice. And I thought, okay, that's great. I had aspirations of other things anyway, and went in, got hurt playing sports, and then I didn't qualify afterwards. And I always wondered, how could I help? And when I had the opportunity to work with the USO, that was a way to get back and connect and be able to help. And then being fortunate enough to be here at Icon, where they allow me to still maintain those connections and still do those activities, interactions. It's just been a great opportunity. So, we're a great company. We love being able to find opportunities for military to be our employees, because we know that they're taught how to do the right thing and do it in the most efficient way. And so we know that they're good employees, and we know that they make good partners within our organization. And so that's why my bosses allow me to keep doing this, is they know it's, one, a good community service, but two, it's a great connection to find that next potential good employee. And, that's probably about all I've got. I think I'm close to time.
Yeah, we've got a couple minutes in your 8 minutes. Does anybody have a specific question of Mark? Does your company, you said it was about 75 people, right?
Correct.
Do you have a veteran resource group within
No,
Icon?
not particularly. We have, like I said, we have several veterans, but
Mhm.
we're about a $60 to $70 million a year project company, and with 75 employees, everybody is pretty vital. So we maintain what we can do basically through business development.
Mhm.
And luckily, with my past experiences, I do have a lot of connections for veteran services, and if something
Right.
comes up, so I guess in a way I'm the veteran resource.
Yeah, I was just
but
gonna say,
it's
with
not
your
a committee.
connections. Okay.
Yeah, it's
All right.
not a committee. It's just a single person. And once you kind of get that next family outside of military, that
Mhm.
becomes a resource in a way anyway. And so there's a lot of things out there that people don't realize that they're being a resource. They just they know a connection, and they don't
Right.
realize that they're being that resource. So we do have a lot of opportunities to help make those connections, and we utilize them when we can.
Very good. Very good. All right. That kind of wraps up on our special guest panelists. So what we're going to do now, thank you for your remarks, Mark. That was great information to see how your experience with USO has been carried into your current opportunity. What we're going to do now is our Q&A period. This is going to be 15 minutes long, and this is open to any type of question, whether it's about the topic of the day and specifically to our special guests on the panel, or to the community if it's something that's a little bit more general as far as a transition question or a transition concern, a resource or expertise that maybe you or someone else is needing to connect with. So I'm going to go ahead and get the timer started. And does anybody have a question for our panelist or the community?
My name is Donald. I got just a couple questions and maybe some thoughts to share.
All right, go ahead.
I tried to get a service dog for a long time, and I know I got all the symptoms, that's for sure. But I was told I wasn't qualified to the VA, so I went and picked up one of the pound, and he's my service dog anyways. But I think there's a big need for something like that up here. We have a pretty big veteran community, and we have a Army base and Air Force base combined with, I think, my 8,000 people sitting right here, right next to my house. So I don't know if maybe I could connect with any of the presenters or something of that nature, and network and explore ways to help. I guess that's
so your question is kind of the eligibility criteria, why you may not have been eligible for a service dog through some, what were there government, it was a government sponsored program that you tried to get a service dog through?
Yes,
and you didn't qualify. Okay.
Yes, I guess one of the questions maybe is, how do you qualify? And that's kind of a general question. And I know sometimes at the VA there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, so that's probably where I ran into little issues. But I've been out for 10 years, so I'm used to that. I don't take no for an answer the first time. So
right.
Usually
all right.
No, so
okay, so the question then to our panelists, if you have some insight to that, since you do have access to these type of resources and maybe know more than what we in general know, anybody have some perspective or insight to Donald's question?
Emma, I may be able to provide some information. So each organization, when it comes to service dog training, each organization has its own qualification process. Like I said, most organizations, whether it's Freedom Service Dog, Canine for Warriors, CCI, ourselves, there are so many veterans that require different types of assistance that it's, in the service dog world, you really have to specialize. I mean, you have to get good at what you're doing. Like I said, we specialize in psychiatric service dogs. One of the more difficult things to do, obviously, is to get that group that we're able to provide assistance to. We sort of work with the VA. Their practitioners, we work with their psychiatrists, identifying how or what assistance or what need the veteran has. So it's a long process. For us to approve a veteran for our program can take 3 to 4 months. By the doctors are very slow, as everybody knows. You write a doctor and it could take a month or so for them to return, and then you have to request additional information, medical records, that kind of thing. And so the process takes quite a bit. I know that from other organizations, it can take, most training organizations specialize in service members can have a 3-year wait list. I mean, that's very common nowadays. Obviously, there's no assistance. There's been talk forever from the Department of Defense, the VA, in providing financial assistance. I don't think that they've come around to that just yet. I know, obviously being in this space since I've been, I think probably 2015, there's been many times that the government has talked about providing at least a portion of the funding for veterans to get a dog. That would open up a great deal more companies to be able to provide service dogs. It's very expensive for
Mhm.
us. The actual training cost of the dog, so that's everything that we do, is $12,000. Now we don't charge our veterans anything, including their transportation to Kansas City. We put them up in a hotel for 9 days. Food and everything is provided. It's very, very expensive. And like I said, some of the problem is even in the private sector, companies, funders that we have worked with have moved their money to different avenues as wars have kind of wound down, and we've left many of those spaces like Afghanistan and Iraq. Organizations that we've worked with in the past have steered money to different things, like the biggest thing was COVID. From 2019 on, it seemed like all of these companies that we were working with moved money to COVID, helping children, education, food, those kinds of things. So it became much more difficult to get funding to provide dogs. And I stay in contact with most of the larger training organizations. They experience the same thing right now.
Okay, so a question I guess is an offshoot to that is, from what you've said, the government sponsored programs of the VA and the things that are being covered by public money, the support, the access to service dogs is actually through partnership with private entities like yourself.
Right.
It's not government sponsored service dogs necessarily.
Right.
So if there was a program I don't know of it. But working with the government can be very tricky as far as the whole contracting and different pots of money. And so whether or not you can even get a service dog through the VA, to me, would be a huge barrier because of all the bureaucracy. Mark,
Right.
can you speak a little bit to that after having been, part of kind of that USO system? Do you understand what we might be kind of talking about?
Can I jump in here ahead of Mark just for a second?
Oh, sure. Yeah, John.
The VA had a study down in Florida to look at service dogs versus emotional support animals versus pets. After the successful completion of that study, they moved to replicate it in 5 other hospitals, Iowa City being one of them. So I have a little bit for the Medical Research Foundation. That study is not complete yet, but the end goal is, if they can quantify the effects of a good service dog or even a good emotional support animal, is to prescribe dogs working with the public-private partnerships that are out there, at which time the dog would be a prosthetic. It would be treated like a piece of equipment, contract veterinarians to do routine upkeep and maintenance. But I believe, feeding the dog is still on the veteran.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying this progress is ongoing as far as the study?
Ongoing study. Right.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? That's progress.
Instinctively, we know human, pet, good mix.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody ever quantified it.
Okay.
So,
well, I hope that helps answer your question, Donald. Did you have remarks to add, Mark?
No, not particularly, but in piggybacking on what John was just saying, all they would have to do is come out to some of these installations like what we had with the USO and Farley and Remington. I know USO Missouri also has some canines. If they spent 2 weeks actually observing, they could quantify it really quick, because it's there. You see it. You see the joy in these soldiers and service members and airmen when they come in and they start interacting with the dogs, especially on bases where the service members are new, first duty station, whatever. They're already missing mom and dad back home. They're missing their pets back home. And then they see those dogs. I mean, you can see a 180-degree change in their attitudes And then when they are trained, like they're trained through Warrior's Best Friend, the dogs know what they're doing. I mean, they understand. Farley knows when he puts his vest on, he's going to work, and he is a working dog. When we go home and we take his vest off, he becomes a dog and he plays with my pets. I have other dogs at home, they're pets. And he has two different personalities. So
Yeah.
it's there. I mean, I hope that we can find ways to make it more viable. And it comes through private business like ours, in
Right.
supporting places like Joe's that actually train these animals,
Yeah.
until we can get to a point where maybe there's some government assistance as well. I mean,
Dani said that she worked with the prison system. Could you speak a little bit to that? Because that is government, sponsored, or something to that effect. If you could kind of share a little bit about how that worked.
Well, what was unusual about it, it was started by the state of Missouri, and it was George, I think his last name was Lombardi, who had retired. They brought him back out of retirement. He made that one of his goals, was to network with the local shelters to keep the dogs out of the shelters or from being killed because they were homeless, and just to make them better pets. They have a prison in Vandalia, Missouri, not Illinois, but Missouri. It's a women prison, and they were teaching service dogs. So he was basically, it was when it started in 2010, you're going to do this, you're going to network them. So I was in on it in the beginning. I volunteered up at the two Cameron prisons, and one of them shut down now. So basically, I was working with the inmates and with the dogs, and we had a dog named Stewie that had severe separation anxiety. And the staff was telling me he was such a bad case. These hardened criminals were about ready to cry because he was just carrying on so badly. We got him turned around. It took about 6 months, and he's now a search dog out in California. So we got his behaviors in place that then he could graduate to work with a higher level of education. Towards the end of my time, about 2014, 2015, state of Missouri was networking with a group called Comtria, and they do emotional support and maybe PTSD dogs. I know it's not exactly service dogs, but it was along those lines, maybe like therapy dogs. And they were doing a big networking effort. Mr. Lombardi has moved on since then. And I know some of the prisons aren't doing it because it was almost like it was mandated when he was around. So it's not as prevalent as it was before, but I'm out of the loop because of bureaucracies and stuff. I was there till almost 2016. So
Yeah, the bureaucracy thing. That's the reason why there's so much support in the military support community, and that it's nonprofit and community organizations, because there's so many layers of bureaucracy when it's a government program, and there's always eligibility criteria and barriers, and there's all these various buckets of money and stakeholders who are invested in whatever these things are. And so sometimes the problem being solved gets buried, under all of that. So
I know it firsthand. My husband passed away a little over a year ago, just trying to pull teeth to get the pension. And I'm like, I'm listed as the beneficiary, the whole bit, and you're making me fill out papers that say it's part of the Paperwork Reduction Act. And I'm filling out 10 pages, and I'm like, what was it like before? And I'm still,
Right.
he got disability also. We're still working on that. So, I understand more than I want to know, but yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Any other questions regarding transition, service dogs, our furry family, before we move on to the transition tips segment?
I have a question.
Sure.
I would like Joe's contact information so I can contact him maybe to volunteer or something, or see what we can do.
Sure.
Because I'm looking for a second dog, and I live halfway in between Leavenworth and the air base at St. Joe, which is where my husband's spent 30 years and stuff. So I don't see any contact information, but I would like to connect with you somehow later.
Okay.
Oh, sure. The chat channel is where you want to put all of that. If you can't see it or you don't know where it's at, that's okay. I'll be saving it before the end of the meeting and getting that cleaned up and organized. So, and that'll get shared with everyone. All right. Okay, that wraps up our Q&A period. So we will move on to the next portion of the program. Thank you, everybody who was on the panel, and also to those who asked questions and made response in the Q&A. All right, so Toops Consulting is focused on supporting students and adults in life, school, career, or business transitions. However, this segment of the program, I'm not going to be talking about our business, but provide transition tips pertaining to the topic of the day, which is our furry family. So some insights and perspective regarding some paradigm shifts will be what will be my tips. So let me grab my notes for that. All right, so what do I mean with our furry family? So in the context of today's program, what we've been primarily focused on has been dogs, but furry family also refers to other members of the household that are not human. They have fur and they love us like family. So the paradigm shift I'd like you to make from today's tips is to expand your ideas for how animals might support you in your transition challenges. That having a companion is key to overcoming significant emotional episodes in life, school, career, or business. Not that you need to have a pet if you don't already have one, but recognize that isolation will often stall or exacerbate a transition. So what do I mean? What are some of the expectations for companionship, whether friends, family, or community? So in the military, relationships for friends, family, or community are built into the environment to good or bad effect. Every mission is done by teamwork. Everyone has a battle buddy. There is a command and control structure. Everyone is assigned to a team or a unit. Sometimes an animal is the battle buddy or is part of the team. So military working dogs or maybe horses in mounted color guards. So the service person's family also, they have to be supportive of the military's expectations for the one who got the career. Otherwise, it really breaks down the family. The military community's resources are systemized to provide all necessary resources and support so that the service members can focus on the mission. So companionship and common understanding of others is inherent in the community, and it's part of the culture. Now, in the non-military environment, relationships for friends and family and community, they may often be achieved just through individual choice. It's not inherent, right? How much or how little people engage in work, play, life, family is primarily as they choose. So it's not prescribed, it's not demanded by virtue of a systemized environment. So obviously, we all have administrative rules and regulations that govern us in society and in our work. However, by and large, our choices are what define our companionship and social encounters and engagement. So, what are some expectations for caring for or taking care of others? In the military, caring for and taking care of others is, again, part of the system and culture of the military. Everyone has a responsibility to some level, to themselves, to their team, to their family, to the community, for how they encounter, how they interact each other and do work and or live. Judgments and expected responses for the process and for the work, they're often documented. They're very prescribed through policy and regulation and other official means. Now, understanding people and the resources for responding to emotional or physical needs is part of the systemized environment. So in the non-military environment, again, caring for and taking care of others is largely by choice. Values and beliefs Maybe societal or organizational expectations might be the basis for it, but it's usually something that is intentionally organized and coordinated versus being inherent in the environment. So how does any of this relate to our furry family or transition challenges? Okay, in the military, companionship, understanding, taking care of and protecting others, it's an environmental norm. In the non-military community, it may or may not be the norm. Not everyone comes back to a supportive family or an environment where people understand them. There may be unfair or uninformed judgment or misunderstandings because of the culture gap. So when a service person leaves the military and reintegrates into an environment where they lack companionship, they lack understanding of others, or those others don't understand them, or there is an audience or lack of audience for their care or service, they have a loss of purpose. All service people have a purpose to serve others. Having a furry family member helps them to get that back. A furry family member has no judgment for who or what they are about, whether they are confused about what is next or how they go about it. That furry family member has unconditional love and support. And sometimes that is exactly what a service person in transition wants or needs to get their confidence back to where they are self-supporting through improved initiative and actions. Networking is hard, and good communication isn't always what people have. It's good communication is necessary. You don't need to have a pet to get past transition challenges, but what is required is companionship, empathy, and sincere care and support. Hopefully that's coming from people. But when you don't have that, a pet or a furry family member may be a really good substitute. So recognize this when you're encountering people in transition, people who are coming out of the service or in a different environment where the expectation for companionship and understanding and service and care is just different. Find out about where there may be gaps for those people that you know, or if you yourself are a service person in transition, so you can figure out where you might need to reach out for support. The Purple Connection is a community of organizations and business professionals who want to and can expedite gaining knowledge and access to resources and opportunities. So be cognizant of what gaps you may have in your knowledge or in those that you know, in what they know or how they're behaving, and seek out appropriate experts to help. That's what I've got for transitions tips today. And we will move on to the next segment of the program. All right. If you're interested in continuing to be more intentional in facilitated conversations on various transition topics, I invite you to become an American Warrior of the ACA Business Club. Becoming an American Warrior is becoming a member of the club, and being a member of the club offers you a lot of benefits. There's access to any of the ACA Business Club facilities that we have. Here in Greater Kansas City, we have 5, but we have facilities all across the country and even some now overseas. You'll have access to over 20 interest groups, where American Warriors is about 1. If you are in business or want to develop business relationships, you can join a business development team. You'll have access to all the various organized and sponsored events of the club at your location and in others, and access to other members through the directory. There's live and virtual networking and learning opportunities every single week, and also leadership opportunities if you're interested in stepping up to leadership for a team, for a group, or at a particular club location. The Purple Connection and Strengths Profile workshops are sponsored, organized, and facilitated by Toops Consulting, and American Warriors are always encouraged to support, attend those themselves or with guests. Other engagement opportunities for American Warriors and their guests are the monthly discussion roundtable, the semi-annual social and guest speaker program, and then also, as mentioned before, stepping up to leadership with either the executive committee or a club committee. Future events. Next week on March 23rd is the monthly American Warriors Discussion Roundtable. This event can be attended in person at the Overland Park Club here in Kansas City or via Zoom. The topic of this month is personal and professional growth with some subtopics of feedback, relationships, and motivation. So this is a little bit of like a mastermind. Everybody who attends has an opportunity to contribute to the conversation. Contact us if you are interested, and we can get you a link for registering so that you can attend. The Intro to Strengths Profile workshop is now on demand. Contact us if your group are interested in learning about or taking the Strengths Profile assessment. And of course, the Purple Connection, which is this event, is every third Thursday of the month on Zoom. The lineup for next month's Purple Connection is starting a business. This is going to be April 20th. Our veteran entrepreneur is Derek Keller. He's the owner and founder of Battlefield Boardroom. Our community organization representative will be Catherine Reed. She's the director of field and campaign strategy for Right to Start. And our military-friendly company is going to be represented by Kevin Kwok, who is the founder of J29 Creative Group. And as always, I will provide transition tips. Check out our transition services at our website if you are unfamiliar with our work. The Purple Connection is the community part of our veteran transition assistance pillar, but we do offer individualized support as well. The Purple Connection does have an online presence at thepurpleconnection.com. This lands you on the community page of our website. Use this to easily refer people to become part of the TPC community, get on our distribution for event announcements. That's also where we post the most recent video for the Purple Connection, and you can see the event announcement and registration link for the upcoming event once I get that posted towards the end of the month. You can use this to refer to some of the support that we may have access to within our community network. Contact me at emma@toopsconsulting.com for more information or anything in the program or future events that you may have question with. If there's someone within the network that you would like to get connected to, feel free to contact me and give me your question, or you can request a free consultation if what you need is some specific help to help clarify what steps you might need to take in whatever transition you may be encountering. That's all we've got. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Very appreciative of your attendance. Have a very good evening. Follow up with each other, and we will see you at a future event. Thank you.